If you are wondering if there is hope for your marriage, you may fear that there isn't. How can you know whether it is worth the risk of time and more rejection? How can you avoid losing a marriage that could be rekindled? There is a way to make this decision without guessing, waiting years, or losing yourself in the process. Today, I will help you to answer these questions for yourself so you can feel more sure about your next steps. There are 3 risks that you face when it comes to deciding on whether to work on a bad marriage. You could lose valuable time from your life, you could get a lot of rejection and stress, and you could lose a very valuable partner. These risks make people feel conflicted, anxious, and indecisive. The good news is that you don't need to spend years trying to reconcile. The right methods either produce improvement in a relatively short time period or they don't. Rejection and stress mainly only happen with mismatch, when we express feelings or desires that don't match our spouse. If you use methods that help you to match your spouse's feelings, comfort zone, and interest, you won't get much rejection once your relationship starts building. Risking losing your spouse when you might have reconciled is a real risk. That risk is mitigated by doing all that you can to reconcile. When you do all that you can, you may get disappointed from time to time, but you won't be left with regrets. Let's take the mystery out of when to give up, when not to give up, and what to do to make your chance to reconcile with your husband or wife much more hopeful. There are a couple of false signals for giving up on your marriage. I want to get these out of the way first so that it will be easier for you to focus on what actually works. The first false signal that there is no hope for your relationship is feeling like there is no hope. The second one is being told by others that there is no hope. Feelings make some people succeed while they make other people fail. These feelings are largely based on past successes or failures. They are also based on correct knowledge or lack of knowledge of what to do. The more you can learn about how to start relationships, handle rejection, be desirable, and create connection, the more hopeful you will feel about all relationships, including that with your spouse. Now, if you know all the skills and do them well, but are not having success, your feelings are going to then be useful to help you to move on to someone else. Skills first, feelings second. That's the best order for working on all relationships. What actually makes for a good initial relationship is the same as what makes for a good marriage. That is how good of a match we are for the other person. The more we match, the easier it will be to get first dates, second dates, relationships, marriage, and continuing marriage as long as that match holds. The most important areas for matching are our values, beliefs, and attitudes about money, children, sex, religion, political and social issues, people, social activities, how to spend free time, and spirituality. For sure, there are other factors that go into good relationships, but matching largely determines who we can be with and who we can stay with. Before marriage, we may seem very similar because of limited contact and not having to deal with a number of these areas. Also, people are more motivated to be agreeable and intentionally put an effort into matching when they are in a new relationship. There are some questions which will help you to determine how hopeful reconciling your marriage is, such as, how well do my spouse and I match? What do I need to be like in order to match my spouse well? Is that the kind of person that I also want to be? Do we continue to have some contact that would allow me to have behavior which makes my spouse feel like we are a good match? Can I create the feeling in my spouse that ending our marriage would also mean the total end of our relationship? Frankly, some people should have never married in the first place because of their degree of mismatch. There simply is no way to continue to mismatch and to reconcile. What you need to notice here is that some things many people think mean you can't reconcile are actually not true. As long as you are a good match and have regular contact, you have hope for reconciling, even if your spouse is not in love with you, even if your spouse says he or she is done, even if you are separated, and even if your spouse is having an affair or your spouse has already filed for divorce. Many, though not most people, do reconcile in each of these situations. To reconcile, you need to be aware of why most people don't and why some people do. It is always the minority that have success in anything, from business to sports to relationships. You can be successful if you do what the successful minority do. The unsuccessful majority do some things that sabotage their success. One is they wait for problems to get worse before taking action. And they wait for their spouse to want to work on the marriage. They continually look for solutions without applying any. They try to build their relationship through mismatching behaviors like criticism, complaining, and arguing. They try to get their spouse to do things their spouse does not want to do. They behave in ways that are unattractive to their spouse. They focus on talking about problems rather than creating connection and attraction. They are too available, and they appear to be unable to be happy without their spouse. People who are holding on to these beliefs and behaviors have little hope of reconciling. If you are holding on to any of them, you can let them go and instantly boost your chances for success. The successful minority take action right away, and this is what they do. They work on one step at a time. They start on the step that won't get resistance from their spouse. They change gradually to avoid resistance. They work on themselves to become a better match and more attractive. They interact less than their spouse wants to help their spouse's feelings to grow. They use good boundaries. They make their spouse feel loved but not needed. They are ready to end the marriage and move on if they don't get commitment. If you have some experience with dating, you may recognize these are the same things that single people do to have good relationships and get married. If you start doing just one of these things, you will greatly improve your chances for successfully reconciling your marriage. The most damaging belief is that it takes two to work on a marriage. The fact is that the way we behave has a major impact on how much we are desired, loved, and respected. The idea that it takes two is a modern one which has not proven helpful for reducing the divorce rate. It is not in line with Christian doctrine and keeps people stuck when their spouse is unmotivated. Christians learn to work on the way we treat others as a first step to reconciling. When is the right time to start working on your marriage? The time to take action is as soon as you are able to take the next step for reconciling. This means that you, 1, know the right step to take, and 2, are able to take that step. Knowing what to do and being able to do it are two very different things. If you know that you have to become a better match for your spouse, but are unable to do that because of conflicting values, then you cannot take the step. Through massive exertion, you may be able to force yourself to, but that would just result in giving it up soon after. Ask yourself what kind of person you have to be for your spouse to want to be with you rather than anyone else. If that is the kind of person you also want to be, then you will be able to, little by little, make those changes. If you want to be the way your spouse wants to be, it is very hopeful for reconciling your marriage, even if you have grown far apart. This is also true even if your spouse is no longer in love, cheating on you, separating, or divorcing. Rebuilding the connection, the similarity, rebuilds the feelings even if your spouse currently does not have those feelings at all. The bigger the difference gap there is to bridge, the more time it takes. The more slowly you have to go at first, the more important it is not to have any needy behaviors, and the more respect you need to build through good boundaries. You don't have to know all of the steps, but you do need to know the next one. Let me tell you about Michelle. Michelle got a consultation with me because she really wasn't sure if her marriage could be saved, and so she didn't want to sign up for a 1-month package. I told her that was a really good idea and that I would have done the same if I were unsure. I asked her to tell me about what her marriage had been like at its best and what it was like currently. Although they had once been close and felt very similar, they had drifted apart and then began having conflict. We looked at whether her current differences with her husband were mainly about the relationship or because they truly were very different people. Examination of key areas made me agree with Michelle that it had been neglect rather than a mismatch that created their emotional disconnection. This meant that there was hope for restoring her relationship. She couldn't just jump right into dating and romance with her husband, but she could get there through a process of validation and restoring trust. Michelle continued coaching with me to work on that and to learn how to respond better when her husband tried to provoke her. In situations like Michelle's, the pace of progress is typically determined by the amount of conflict, the amount of contact, and whether one or both of them is being unfaithful. A high conflict, low contact affair situation would be much more difficult to reconcile than the same situation without conflict and with regular contact. Consider how similar you and your spouse are, even in the best of times, how much contact you have now, and how positive your contact is. These three considerations will help you to discern much better what you need to work on if you want to reconcile and give you an idea of how difficult it would be. God has two things really helpful for your situation. One, He has the answers. If you feel like God has not answered your prayers, it just might be that He has, but you have overlooked it in the Bible. Reading the Bible will also help you to be in tune with what advice is godly and which is not. Read the Bible and pray about all of your decisions before you make them. Do what you believe God is telling you, but make sure it is consistent with His Word. The second thing that God has for you is He has peace. When you pray, make your request and give thanks. You will get peace in return. A lot of people miss out on getting peace because they forget to give thanks. Let me tell it to you in God's words. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. That's from Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 and 7, reading from the NIV version. Pray about each step in the process and not just the outcome you want. For example, pray that God will help you to consistently greet and respond to your spouse in a loving and validating way. Pray that God will help you to be patient so as not to push your spouse away with pursuit behaviors, and so on. It might help you to get some help if you want clarity about whether your marriage can improve, and the best path to doing that, an action-focused consultation may be the next step. From there, you can feel better about your decision not to reconcile, or you can get started on a more hopeful action path for reconciling.